everybody today. If you are online, I appreciate you tuning in from your house, from the beach, from wherever you are, having a good time with that. If you're out in the lobby right now, here's your sign. Come on in and join us a little bit. Yeah! Well, we're having fun here today. I'm up here with my man, Mark Myers. If you haven't met him, you need to check out Mark Myers. He is here helping us get things organized. You're going to keep hearing from him and asking for help and volunteers. Hey, Mark Myers. Perfect.
Hey,
that's it.
I was dragged up here, by the way. I was dragged up here.
Yeah, this isn't his deal. I was like, I got you, man. I got you. So if you are in your seats right now, you'll notice the little QR codes on the back of your seats. Or you can go to catalystchurch.info if you're online, and you can fill out your connection card there. We'd love to have you guys join us. One thing to put on your calendar, Out of the Garden, we're getting back and having more service opportunities. Let's get together. Let's serve as a family. We are doing that June 30th. If you are local here, check us out June 30th. We're going to do Out of the Garden. But this is week number 2 of Evan and his sermon series. And week number 2 of me sitting down and enjoying worship. So I'm going to pray. We're going to have a great time of worship today. And then we're going to have some fun with the sermon that Evan's going to bring with us after that. So pray with me. Father God, thank you for today, for your love, for the excitement that you bring. I ask you, Lord, to just open our hearts and let us use these words to explain what you're doing. When we run out of the words, that we can just borrow these words and we can follow this team as they lead us into your presence. Show us your face. Show us what you have for us, and just draw us near to you this whole time. It's in your son's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Go Cowboys. Go Cowboys.
Good morning. You guys go ahead and stand to your feet. Let's worship together this morning.
God.
There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming out to me. Come on, sing that out. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming out to me. Yeah. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming out to me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming out to me. No, no. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming out to me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming out to me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming out to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it. I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Can't go back to the beginning. Can't control what tomorrow will bring. But I know here in the middle is the place where you promised to be. Thank you, Lord. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? Ooh, yes. Thank you, Lord. Meet us here again, Father. As I walk now through the valley, let your love rise above every fear. Like the sun shaping the shadows, in my weakness your glory appears. Oh, yes. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? Unless you come, will you meet me here? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here? There is a promise that points beyond my failure. There is a still voice that silenced all my fears. Even the worst of my mistakes are miracles in the making. Are miracles in the making. By your stripes I am healed. With one touch I am made whole. By your stripes I am healed. With one touch I am made whole. You have spoken, and I know that it is so. In the storm, you are peace, and your love won't let me go. You have spoken, and I know that it is so. You have spoken, and I know that it is so.
Amen. That last line, in the storm, I can have peace. You give me peace. The only way to have peace in the middle of a storm, you guys been in like a hurricane before, something really bad. The only way to have peace is to know that there's a shelter over your head that's not going to break. You guys can take a seat real quick. We want to continue with that thought of Jesus being our peace. The idea that by Jesus going to the cross created this shelter over our head that we can live freely, knowing that no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what storms happening, no matter what issues are happening, we can always come back to his table through communion and remember that that shelter's in place. And so this morning, if you guys want to pull this out, you should have gotten it coming in. It's our Peel and Eat communion. If you pull back that top layer, we've got this little wafer. And if you've never taken communion before, it's something we do here every week as a part of our worship. And if you've never taken it before, we take this that Jesus put in place, we take this to remember his body that was beaten so that we can live freely. And when we eat it, we remember that. Let's do that this morning. And in the same way, he passed a cup to his disciples and gave us this symbol of his blood being poured out for us. And as much as we want to try to blur that image in our head and not really relive that, we still come every week to the table and remember Jesus' blood poured out for us. And so we drink that together. Dear Heavenly Father, you have created a shelter for us to wear out the storm, to wait in patience, to wait in peace, knowing that you will always protect us, you will always be there with us, and you will always, always love us, no matter what we've done. And although there are many doubts that we have in our lives, and many times we doubt that maybe you don't actually love us, God, let us just sit here right now in this moment and just remember that there is a God out there that cares for me, that loves me, no matter my sin, no matter my issue. The communion I'm taking this week, next week, and every week to follow is a reminder that you love me, you died for me, and that you want what's best for us. God, thank you for that sacrifice. Thank you for loving us. In your name I pray. Amen. Well, like I said, we're continuing week 2 of a series called Doubt. And when I started this series last week, the whole purpose of week 1 was to set our framework on how we actually view doubt. I used an analogy of glasses, right? If you have a bad eyesight, things are kind of blurry until you put the right prescription on. And when you see that, you can see it clearly. It goes from something that's cloudy, blurry, that you don't really know, and it turns into something that you can see, that you can understand. And the glasses we're putting on to view doubt that we talked about last week is that doubt is not a shameful thing, right? Because generally we put the glasses on of shame where I think I'm a bad Christian because I just can't get past the fact that Jesus did this, that I doubt this, I doubt that God's good enough, I doubt all of this stuff. And we have questions that we have. And so today we're continuing. Now we can actually dig into popular doubts that people have. And I put a Facebook status out a couple weeks ago saying, hey, what are popular doubts among Christians? And it blew up, and I took 3 of those, or a ton of them, and made it into 3 specific topics. And now that we have the right glasses on this Sunday morning to view doubt, let's dig into a couple. If you know me, for those of y'all that know me well, I'm not an emotional person. Like, you won't catch me in like an emotional state, right? I'm just not like that. In fact, there was proof yesterday. I was DJing a wedding, and there's always the special dances. Bride and groom has the first dance, bride and father, all this kind of stuff. The bride wanted an extra dance with the grandfather. I think there was just, he made such an impact on her life that she wanted an extra dance. The grandfather has been walking with a cane and needs a cane for like the past decade or something. As the grandfather stood up out of a seat with help of others, he drops the cane down at his chair and he walks out to the dance floor. Exactly, that's what everybody else said. They started crying immediately. Do you know what I was thinking? Immediately I was thinking of an Office quote that went with it, and then my brain went to, I wonder what's for dinner. Is that, or the beef tips? Ooh, that's gonna be good, right? I'm just not an emotional person, right? Like everybody else was crying, the bridal party was like wiping tears and holding each other, and I'm just like, what's for dinner, right? I'm just not an emotional person, except there's one thing that can pull at my heartstrings, turn me into just a crying baby, and that is, stick with me for a second, a well-planned death in a movie. You know what I'm talking about? I said hold on for a second. Here's the messed up part. A well-planned death of an animal in a movie, okay? Like, I watched A Star is Born. Anybody seen that, the latest one that came out? Plot twist, the man dies at the end. But as the man dies, his dog is outside of the garage laying down. I shed no tear for the man that died. But the dog that was without his owner I was like, I can't deal with this. I'm an emotional mess when animals die in movies. And you might be like, aren't you like in ministry and supposed to love people? I get it. Let's just move past it, okay? But specifically, there's one death scene in a movie that just gets me every time. And maybe you've heard of this movie. It came out a little while ago called Lion King. Anybody ever heard of that before? So you've probably heard of it, right? In Lion King, and you all know the death I'm talking about. And someone even said, on Father's Day? Really? I didn't make the connection till now. In Lion King, if you haven't seen it, sorry, cover your ears, plot twist. Simba is down in this valley, in this canyon, and something happens, powers that be make stuff happen, and a stampede comes through. And in the midst of all that craziness, Mufasa, his father, runs down there and saves him. And then as the dust settles, the stampede clears, we come on this picture of Mufasa laying down and Simba running down with hopefulness in his eyes as he sees his father laying there. And what happens? I get chills right now talking about it. And what happens next? Simba comes up, Dad? And then kind of nudges him like cats do and stuff like that. Oh man, that breaks my heart to watch that, right? And we see Simba do that. And then Uncle Scar comes, and now we know that there were other powers at work that made that happen. But in the midst of this scenario, in the midst of seeing his father dead on the ground, Simba believes that it was all his fault, right? And what is his reaction to that? He runs away. He runs away from a world and a people group or an animal group that desperately needed him to engage. In the midst of his greatest failure, the death of his father, Simba runs away. And we get that, right? That's not far-fetched. That's not crazy to us. We get that when we experience failure, our first step is never forward, it's backwards. It's running away. Right? Being like, you know, if you go out and hang out with friends or go to a bar or something like that, you get into conversations about, hey, what do you do for a living? What do you do, right? And when I go out, I try to avoid it as much as I can, because as soon as you say, oh, I'm a minister, then like everything stops and it's like, well, and they put their tie on that they just grabbed from their back pocket or something like that. So I try to avoid that, but it inevitably comes up, oh, I'm a minister at a church in Greensboro. I do youth ministry, worship. When I talk about youth ministry, almost every time, 100% of the time, their eyes light up in remembrance of, oh man, I used to do youth group. Yeah, we went on trips. We went on Carowinds every summer. We did missions trips. And as they talk and reminisce over that, the light in their eyes starts to die down. And it's almost as if they're like, I did all this stuff. What happened? Like, how am I here now? What happened? And it's not just other people. Like, in fact, there's every year we go to summer camp here, right? And growing up, I went to summer camp. And at summer camp, there's this thing on Thursday night called Cry Night. Anybody familiar with that? Yeah, it's emotionally like every camp tries to do it. Like Thursday night, we're going to make sure every kid, converts to Christianity, even if they're already Christians, right? And so Thursday night is when everybody's crying, freaking out. This is it. Like, I'm giving my life to Jesus. Some kid comes up, I'm going to be baptized this year. And the kid beside you, like, wasn't he baptized last year? No, he needs it. Let him have it. Like, let him have it. He's getting baptized again. You get all pumped. And although there are real decisions made, when they leave camp 2 weeks later, you're sitting at home alone in your room with the same addictions that you had before. the same issues you had before. And you look back, and 2 weeks ago, I was at the altar at camp giving my life to Jesus, removing that sin from my life, claiming to be a disciple of him forever. And now I'm stuck in the same rhythm I was before camp. And we say, like, maybe it's for some people, but it's not for me. So in the midst of this failure, not being a good Christian, I'm not going to be a terrible person, but I'm just going to run over here. Like other people can be over there with God. Other people can be in a relationship with God. I'm just not good enough at it, and I failed too many times. So you know what? I'm not going to be terrible. I'm not going to kill anybody. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to live over here. And we get that. Right? I think everybody at some point in their life has felt that. Even if you're in church this morning or you've been in church every day for the past 10 years, maybe you've been feeling this and you've been going to church just to, you know, that's my good enoughness for the week, right? I can check that off. That's good enoughness. Now I can focus on running away. And ultimately, the reason we run is to avoid the question that's burning in every single person's heart and mind this morning. What does God think of me? Like there is a God, an all-powerful being that has an opinion of me. And instead of coming before him and facing that opinion, I'd rather go over here. Because we assume what his opinion is, right? He's mad, he's upset, he's frustrated, he doesn't want me in his family. We assume what the opinion is, but we all come back to the question, in my greatest failure, in the midst of all the crap in my life, what does God think of me? So welcome to Catalyst. That's what we're going to dig into this morning, a little heavy right off the top. We're going to do this by going into the life of Peter, and I'm going to give you like a 5-minute synopsis of who Peter is. If you know anything about him, he's one of the disciples of Jesus, one of the first that Jesus called, and I hate to use the word, but he's probably like the top tier disciple, right? Like there's the 12, and then there's the 3, and then there's Peter. Like Peter is up there. He is the man with Jesus, and Peter is all heart. The dude is passion. He is ready to go. He's gassed up, ready for anything. But the problem is he's probably about half brain, right? Like he's ready to go, but he's not super organized as he does it. He's not really he's not tactful in the things that he does. And there's one point in Jesus's ministry where he says to his disciples, "Who do you say that I am? Who do you think that I am?" This is the beginning of his ministry. And the disciples were like, well, the last town we were in, they said you were, a prophet, so that's possible. And then that one guy said you were Elijah reincarnated, that's possible. And Jesus is like, no, I don't care what they said. Who do you guys say that I am? And in the midst of that, Peter is the only one that sticks up and says, you are the Son of God. You are the one that has come to save. I believe everything about you. Emboldened, Peter's the only one that sticks up for who Jesus is. And then moments later, Jesus is like, that's right, and I'm going to go to the cross and die for you. And Peter's like, hold up, that ain't going to happen. Stop talking about crosses, Jesus. And he rebukes him. And Jesus is like, I'm Jesus. What are you doing? Why are you rebuking me, right? So Peter is like, I'm ready to go, but he doesn't really use tact with it. He's not super organized with it, right? And there's a point where Jesus, right before he's betrayed, where does he go? He takes his disciples into the garden. He takes them into the garden, and Jesus is going to go pray. And he says, disciples, I want you to stay here. I want you to just stay awake, pray with me. I'll be over there. Jesus comes back. What are they doing? Passed out, right? So Jesus is like, come on, wake up, goes back, prays, comes back. What's happening? They are out, right? Jesus says, come on, one more time. He comes back, he prays. As he comes back, he wakes them up and says, let's go, we got work to do. Because what's happening? Soldiers are coming in, right? So Peter wakes up to this small army coming in. Have you ever fallen asleep on the couch as a kid and woken up at 3 a.m. and you're like, where the heck am I? This isn't my house. Is it day? Is it night? What's going on? You're a little bit confused. Peter wakes up in this blurriness and this fog, and he sees a small army approaching on Jesus with torches and weapons. And what does he do? He pulls a fishing knife out, right? We think it's a sword. It says it's a sword. If you look back on the word that they're using, it's actually like a fishing knife that he had. But we know later in the text there were 2 swords there, with the group, okay? He chooses to take out a fishing knife. He's still like, what's going on? He comes out, he attacks one of the soldiers, cuts the dude's ear off. He's all passion, but are you going to come at an army with a little fishing knife, and are you going to go for the ear, right? He just can't follow through every time. He's got all the heart that he needs, but he just can't follow through. And so we see if Peter failed at protecting Jesus. He runs away but keeps a distance as the guards take Jesus to be put on trial. And so it's nighttime. Peter's kind of following along. And they make their way into a courtyard, an outside courtyard. And Peter comes in. And it says there's this charcoal fire that he stands around. So you can imagine at this point all the adrenaline's kind of settled down. The passion's kind of up. He's fully awake, but like he's just kind of settling down around this fire. The man he's been following the past 3 years has just been arrested. Everything he believed is turned upside down, and Peter's left alone with his thoughts by this charcoal fire. And it's at that moment that a man approaches him. He's been probably staring at him all night. Like, I think that's him. He can see him whispering, and this man approaches Peter around the fire as he's warming himself up. And he said, hey, you're that guy that follows Jesus, right? The guy that's in there like about to be killed. And Peter's like, no, that's not me. That's someone else. And the guy persists. He's like, no, like I'm pretty sure you sound just like him. Like that's you, right? I saw you following him. And Peter's like, no, that's not me, man. Back off. And a final time, someone's like, no, that's definitely, I remember seeing you like when Jesus fed all those people on the mountainside. Like I remember that. That's you. You're one of them. And to show how serious he is and to dedicate to the fact that he's not one of Jesus' followers, it says Peter's cursed at the guy. In God's name, he curses at the guy just to prove, like, look, I'm not one of the guys. Would one of Jesus' disciples say this? And then, curse him or something like that, right? And so Peter, in the midst of this, denied Jesus 3 times. And we have context leading up to this, but it's not super important right now. Denies him 3 times, and at that point, Peter looks up, and who does he see across the courtyard? With blood and sweat probably coming down, spit on him, lifting his head up, Peter makes eye contact with Jesus. And in the midst of that, in that context, what does Peter do? He runs away. Right? Just like Simba, in the midst of his father being dead and understanding that a lot of it was his fault, he ran away. Peter, in the midst of what could be his greatest failure, he decides to run. And it's in this mind frame, in this mindset, that we pick up Peter in this next verse. We're going to be in John 21. And it says, after this, Jesus revealed himself again. After what? After Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. And when Jesus came out of the grave, he told Mary, go tell the disciples and Peter. Peter's a disciple, right? Maybe not. I don't know. I'm questioning everything now. He says, go tell the disciples and Peter. There's 2 possibilities for this. One, Jesus is disowning Peter. Go tell the disciples, and since Peter's no longer disciple, since he screwed me over back there, to come along too. That doesn't sound like Jesus, though. So what I think it is Jesus knew that in Peter's heart, he no longer identified as a disciple of Jesus. So Jesus is saying, Mary, go tell the disciples, and I know Peter thinks he's not invited, but like double invite Peter. Send him an email, send him a text, send him a letter. Like Peter needs to be there because I know he doesn't want to be there. And he gathers all the disciples in an upper room. We see this whole interaction we'll talk about later. But this is where we pick it up. After this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he revealed himself in this way. This is the once upon a time to the story. This is setting up the story. Here it is. Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. Now, at first, we're like, this sounds like a declaration of a hobby that he's about to do, right? Like they're just hanging out, just kicking back, and Peter's like, you know what? I think I want to go fishing. I think I want to kill a couple hours, right? Like a hobby. It says later that they fished through the night. I don't care how much you like fishing. Is anybody willing to like fish through the night just to kill a little bit of time? Like, oh, whoops, and just put you out, Rick. Besides Rick, is anybody, you don't do that as a hobby. Right, through the night. And it also says later he had his work clothes on. This was not just kicking back, relaxing. This was working. And so the other thing might be, well, maybe they just needed some side income, right? Maybe they're just trying to bring in some fish so they can sell, make a little money because Jesus is no longer there miraculously, putting them on salary. I don't know how that worked. But maybe they're just like, I need a little bit of money. But who said this? Let's put in the context of who said this. Peter, I'm going fishing. As if to say, he's not declaring a hobby that he's about to do. He's declaring a lifestyle that he's about to go back to. Does that make sense? It's a lot like Michael Jordan. I'm not a big sports guy, so I'm just trying here. This is the best analogy I could get. Michael Jordan, he had that little baseball tiff, remember? Exactly. And when he finished that, he was at a press conference, and they said, what are you going to do next? He said, I'm going to play basketball. What did that mean? He's going to go out back, shoot some hoops with his kids and stuff like that. No, he was declaring the life he was going back to, right? Peter is declaring, look, I'm no longer fit to be that. What Jesus asked me to be, what he molded me. So I'm going back fishing. Anybody like the show Lost? Anybody seen that show? Thank you. Great. Love the show. I just finished watching it again. In the pinnacle, as the series is coming to an end in the last season, there's this guy named Ben. And Ben kills the main protagonist, the main good guy. Ben kills him. And there's this lady that's trying to kill Ben in one episode. And she gives him mercy. Am I ruining this for her? Am I like ruining the plot? And she gives him mercy. And as he's going away, she says, where are you going? Like, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going back to John, who's the bad guy. I'm going back there. And she said, why? And in tears, he said, because he's the only one that'll have me. And I think that cries out in a lot of people's hearts when we fail at this, at Jesus, at God, at religion, at Christianity. When we fail at that, we say, I'm going back. Why? Because it's the only thing that'll have me. It's the only thing I'm good at. I'm not good at that, so I'm just going back. And so Peter says, I'm going fishing. In the midst of failure and disappointment, what does he do? What a lot of us do. We go back to work, right? When we fail at being a husband at home and we're not living up to it, we can always go to work. People respect us there. We can accomplish these little things that make us feel good. Or maybe when we're not doing so good at parenting, maybe like our kids are just not like respecting us the way we want to or anything like that, we can always go to work and I can work there and I can feel good about that. But what happens when work doesn't work out? We go to distractions, right? Like I may not be productive right now, but at least my mind's off of it. I can play Candy Crush for 3 hours straight and like forget that I'm a failure in all of these ways. And so we pinball, in the midst of our failure, we pinball between busyness and distractions, living this life where we think that we're numbing the pain only to build it all up. And we pinball back and forth so we can avoid that question that we talked about at the beginning. What does God actually think of me? So Peter's declaring, I'm not a good disciple, I'm not a good Christian, so I'm going to take a step backwards and I'm going fishing. And here's the scariest part of this entire verse. The scariest part, his friends follow him. Because Peter was like the top dude, right? The things we say, the things we do in response to our failures, people are watching, people are following, people are doing the exact same things. And I could spend a whole sermon there, but we're just going to keep on going because we got a lot. So we see that they go fishing. And like I said, they fish all night long. Caught nothing. Absolutely nothing. Fishing all night long, which I think is a little funny, and I think that's God's way of complicating what's happening as Peter's trying to turn around. Because think about it. If you were really, really good at something, then you follow Jesus, fail at that, and you go back to that thing you were really, really good at, and you suck at it, like, it sucks now. I can do nothing. I'm good at nothing. So I think God was complicating Peter's plans to go backwards. And so the day was coming up, the sun was rising, and just as the day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore. Yet, the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. They were about 100 yards from the shore. We read it later. They're about 100 yards out, which is, a pretty good distance. And so your first thought is, well, maybe they didn't recognize because of the distance. But then there's the shouting match between them, like Jesus is talking back and forth, and you think they would recognize the voice of Jesus, right? So then we think, well, maybe he was, we know later in Revelation it says Jesus still bore his scars, so maybe he was just so misconfigured that the disciples couldn't recognize who it was. But I think, and this is super theological and super deep, I think this is Jesus just having fun. Okay? I think Jesus is allowed to have fun. And we see this all throughout. After his resurrection at the end of the Gospels, almost every person he appears to, at first he appears not to be Jesus, if that makes sense, right? And so it doesn't seem like it serves a purpose, so it just seems like Jesus is having like fun, like being playful with them. The first time we see this is when Mary is coming on the third day. The tomb's empty. She's coming to find Jesus' body, and it's not there, and she weeps in the middle of this garden. And we see Jesus appears to her, and he's like, hey, what's going on? And Mary's like, they took his body, blah, 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 like through tears and stuff like that. And Jesus is like, oh no, blah, blah, blah. And it says she thought he was the gardener. Why did she think he was the gardener? I like to think he was like standing at the bushes pretending to like prune bushes and stuff like that. And he's like, what's going on, Mary? And then like when she gets to her lowest point, he's like, ta-da, surprise, shawty, it's me, right? And like he's playing with her, it seems like. And there's another point where he's walking to Emmaus and he meets two disciples and he appears to them and comes out, but they did not know it was Jesus. His own disciples, side by side for 7 miles they're walking, they didn't know it was Jesus. And Jesus comes up, he's like, hey guys, what are y'all talking about? And they're like, surely you are not the only person who does not know like what happened to Jesus. And he's like, Jesus, what are you talking about? And they explain to him, well, this happened. And Jesus is like, no, what? Seriously? I had no idea. And then eventually Jesus is like, yeah, but isn't that supposed to fulfill this scripture and fulfill this prophecy? And he starts teaching them along the way, and they still don't know it's Jesus, right? Even though the teacher's right before them teaching. And it finally gets to a point where they're at their destination, and it says Jesus pretended to move ahead. Pretending is a playful word. You got to use your imagination for pretending, right? So I imagine Jesus was just like, all right, I guess that's your place. I'll go here. I wish I had some bread to take with me or something like that. And the two disciples are like, hey, why don't you come in here, Jesus? Have dinner with, not Jesus, stranger that we just met. Why don't you come in here and have dinner with us? And Jesus comes in, he prays over the meal, and as he's breaking the bread, he's praying, and I imagine, in Jesus' name, amen. It's me. And then he just disappears. Jesus just disappears. And the two guys are like, what? Like, whoa, now I get it. And so these two disciples get up, run the 7 miles back to where they were to see the disciples who were in the upper room. They come in, they close the door, they lock it with like the 15 locks and put it down. And they're like, you'll never believe this. And as they're telling the disciples, Jesus appears through these locked doors and he's like, what's up? And the disciples are like, what? Jesus? And the best part about this, my favorite part, because it involves food, Jesus is like, I'm here. He's like, do y'all have any fish, anything to eat here? Like, I think Jesus is just being playful. When he comes back to his children, he's having fun. And so when Jesus is at this shoreline, they didn't know it was him, and he calls out. Jesus said to them, children, do you have any fish? Now, this in the original, like our words don't have a ton of meaning when compared to Greek. Greek words have so much meaning in them. And this word children in the Greek is actually masculine. So it's really little boys. Little boys. And then he asked the question, do you have any fish? In the original sentence, it's in the negative connotation. So Jesus is at the shoreline 100 yards away. Oh, little boys, you're not catching anything, are you? It's not working out there. You don't have anything to show for all the running that you've been doing. And this is the best part. In their response, you can feel the defeat. No. Like, way out there in the boat, Jesus is like, you're not catching anything, are you? And the disciples probably heads down. No. We've been here all night and haven't caught a single thing. And now we're questioning our entire identity. And Jesus is like, why don't you just throw the net on the other side? This random man on the shore is telling these fishermen, these professional fishermen, hey, why don't you try this? So you can imagine the frustration that the disciples have, but they, for whatever reason, they decide to throw the net out, and they catch so many fish that they're having trouble hauling it in. And it's at that moment right there that they catch the fish that Peter makes a connection. This story sounds familiar, right? Throw your nets on the other side. It's not that you've read this before, this specific one, but this happened earlier when Jesus first called Peter. He did this exact same miracle. They're out fishing, they're catching absolutely nothing, and Jesus said, throw your nets on the other side, and they did it. And when that happened, Peter fell before Jesus, who was in his boat, and he gave his life to him. Because Jesus said, I want you, I want everything you have, and I want your identity to be matched with mine. And so in the midst of Peter running from his failure, questioning his identity, and not knowing what's next because he's still failing, Jesus performs this miracle, and Peter realizes, it clicks right there, Jesus still wants me. Immediately, Peter is taken back to 3 years ago. And what's crazy, and I think even gives more proof to this is not the first time Peter has seen Jesus since the death. Remember, I was telling you Jesus came through the door and asked for fish? Peter was in that room. For the loudmouth disciple, who is always known, when he walks in a room, you know he's there, why do we have no recorded interaction between him and Jesus? Because I think he probably stayed in the back of the room, arms crossed, defensive position. I'll let them talk with Jesus. I'll let them interact. I'll be back here. Why? Because he knows Jesus has an opinion of him, and he doesn't want to figure what it is. He doesn't want to figure out what it is. In his mind, he's questioning right now, last time I saw Jesus, I denied him. So what does Jesus think of me? And we have no interaction. It says this is the third time he appeared to the disciples, so there's a second time too that we don't know of that Jesus appeared to them, and Peter still had no interaction. But at this point right here, why does Peter interact with Jesus? Because by performing that miracle again and recreating that moment of connection, Jesus is communicating to Peter, I still want you. Like your identity's still going to be wrapped up with me. I still want who you are because I still love you. And Peter hears that, and his response is he puts his robe back on, jumps out of the boat, and swims to shore to Jesus. Peter realizes that Jesus still wants him, and that encouragement's still here, that Jesus still wants you. Right? No matter how far we run, no matter what identity we go back to, no matter what habits we go back to, Jesus still wants you. But a lot of the times, how we like to imagine Jesus on our shore is yelling. Jesus sees our boat. Hey, get back here. Like, we're not done yet. Come back here. Like that's in our mind, what Jesus tells us from the shore. But Jesus is like, come here. It's not working, is it? Come on, like let's try this again. Come back this way. He's kind, he's playful, he's gentle. This is a father's response to us running away. And so Peter swims up to shore, and when they got out on land, the disciples and Peter, they saw a charcoal fire in place. Keep that in mind. With fish laid out on it. I love that part right there. They just caught a ton of fish. 158, I think is what it said. Jesus already had the fish there. It's like you don't have to bring anything back. I got it. I'll take care of it. We'll skip to verse 12. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. And Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. In the moment of returning to Jesus, they weren't met with anger, with an iron rod, with scolding. They were met with pancakes on the griddle. Right? Who do you cook breakfast for? People you like, people you want to hang out with, people you love, your family, right? Jesus meets them with breakfast ready. Hey, come on, sit by the fire. I know it's cold. Let's go. Come on, let's eat some breakfast together and hang out. And I said, keep in mind the charcoal fire. Now, there's fires throughout all the Bible, right? We see fires for sacrifice, fires for cooking. The fires of hell is talked about. This word for charcoal fire, it's one word, charcoal fire, and it's only used one other place. Do you know where that is? The charcoal fire at the courtyard where Peter denied Jesus. Only 2 times this fire is ever talked about in the Bible. Why would the writer go through this much detail to put in these details that there's a charcoal fire? And so right after Jesus recreates the moment of connection with Peter, he recreates the moment of his greatest failure. As if to say, I love you, I care about you, I want you, but we need to talk about this. We need to deal with this. And so we can imagine, we know how a smell can take us back. A song can take us back. 10 years ago, a song comes on, you're right back in that moment. A smell brings you back. Peter's right before this charcoal fire, just weeks before, remembering the last time. So I can't imagine he ate a lot. I imagine he just sat there, still kind of quiet, the adrenaline settling down. And when they finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John. I think at this point, we know later that they're walking. And so Jesus is like, Peter, come on, let's go for a walk. Let's talk about this. We're back. We're eating breakfast together. We're in relationship together. Let's now deal with that and move forward. A lot of times we think that we're met with a God that's yelling at us, that's angry at us, and the picture we get is scared. But paint this picture real quick. Sunrise over the water, on a walk with Jesus on the beach, your stomach's full from breakfast. This is peaceful. This is nice. This is an interaction that of someone that cares and that loves about you. So we see him say, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Well, what are these? What is Jesus talking about? I think there's 2 possibilities here. I mean, there's plenty, but the 2 that I like to think of. Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? And I think he may have been pointing at the disciples, which is pointing back to a scripture earlier where Jesus said, people will leave me. And Peter's like, no way. Even if all of these suckers leave you, I'll still be by your side. And I think Jesus is saying, do you love me more than these? Like pointing at the disciples. And he's like, because it didn't seem like it. You were running right along with them. In fact, you were probably worse than them. Do you love me more than these? Or maybe they were walking by the boat at that point, and Jesus is like, do you love me more than these? And the fish are flopping through the net, and it's trying to get organized with the fish. And he's, do you love me more than these? As if to say, do you love me more than that lifestyle that you ran back to so quickly? Do you love me more than the habits, the identity that you've wrapped yourself around? Do you love me more than that, Simon, son of John? Or maybe there were disciples eating fish, and Jesus went, do you love me more than these? Just to catch both of them at the same time, like more than these, right? Like, do you love me more than these? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And so Jesus said, feed my lambs. Jesus asked him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And he said to him, tend my sheep. Jesus said to him the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, do you love me? So Peter said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him the last time, feed my sheep. At first, it feels like Jesus is kind of picking on him. Like, Simon, do you love me more than these? Yeah. Are you sure? Because it didn't look like it. It feels like he's trying to shame Peter at first. But let's think about this. If you wanted to shame someone, which way would you point? Backwards. Right? You don't shame someone about their future. You shame someone because of the way they were raised, because of actions they did. You shame them because of the sin they had in their past. But Jesus doesn't do that. Jesus points to the future. Do you love me more than these? Yes, I do. Okay, we got some work to do, man. Let's go feed my lamb. Let's go tend my sheep. Do you love me more than these? Yes, you know I do. Okay, I don't care about any of that. Let's go forward. Final time, do you love me more than these? God, you know that I do. Let's move forward. Let's move forward. And I think he does this 3 times to cover up the 3 times that Peter denied Jesus. As if to say, look, it doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter how many times you did it. It doesn't matter in what manner you did it with or who you did it with. I am covering all of that with your future. I'm not pointing to your past to shame you. I'm not pointing backwards so that you feel bad. I'm pointing forward so that you'll be encouraged and so that you'll feel loved. Here's an important principle about Jesus that we know from modern medicine, right? When Jesus puts his hands over your wound, it's never to hurt you. Jesus puts his hand over your wound, it's never to hurt you. I had a problem in high school. I dislocate my knees all the time. Generally, it would come back in itself. But the very first time it ever happened, my kneecap was out of place for like 4 hours, right? Do you know how they got it back in? They had to put their hand on my leg, and they pulled. And it hurt so bad, right? A doctor put his hand on my wound so that he could bring healing. And Jesus is bringing his hand on your wound, not to hurt you, but to make you feel better, to remove the baggage that you've been carrying for so long. The band's going to come back up, and we're hopefully going to have a moment here where we can practice this principle of Jesus putting his hands on our wounds to bring healing and move forward. But here's the deal. There's a lot of baggage that we carry today. When we ran away from Jesus so long ago, when we ran away to be this lifestyle over here, we picked up this baggage here, we picked up this boulder here, we picked up so much stuff that's weighing down on us that we feel like Jesus is yelling at us. And so we don't want to turn back. So we just carry it. And I don't know what your baggage is. I know what mine is. Man, I know my messed up stuff real good. But for you, it might be that like a parent spoke failure into your life since you were like really young. And made you feel like you weren't ever going to be good enough to do anything in life. So now you live with this burden that, look, if my own dad, if my own mom didn't believe in me, what's the point? How can I move forward? Maybe it's you've been in relationships with people that have treated you in a way where you felt like you had to work hard just for them to love you. Right? We all know relationships like that where you feel like the only way someone could care about you, find value in you, absolutely love you is if you give more of yourself. If you give more of your time, more of your money, more of your body to them, and that's the only way you experience love, and you put that baggage on and carry that. Maybe for some of you, it's that you're still sitting in the same exact addiction you had for 20 years. Maybe you're sitting with that same exact problem, that same exact addiction that you had, and you've dealt with it for so long, and you faced so much failure with it where you tried to quit, but it didn't work, and you tried to quit again and it didn't work. And so now you just sit and you identify yourself as that addiction. Like you're just an alcoholic. You're just a porn addict. You're just a drug addict. You're just easy. You're just someone that can be abused and can be taken care of. And that's now your identity. I don't care what your baggage is. But whatever it is, Jesus is standing right now at your shore, yelling out at you, not in anger, but it's like, it's not working. Right? Like you're trying. Like I see you trying. You're trying to numb everything. You're trying to distract yourself, but it's not working. So just come have breakfast. Come sit with me. Come hang out with me for a little bit, and we'll deal with it, I promise, but let's just hug it out first. Right? Let's stop trying to beat ourselves up thinking that the addiction that we have, the issues that we have, makes us too far gone from Jesus. We're trying something new here at Catalyst. We believe prayer is a powerful thing, and we feel like we haven't done a good job at supporting that in our services. And so we've got some people who I think their biblical gift is praying, talking, communicating with God, communicating with other people. And so we're gonna have those people stand up and kind of space themselves out. If you wanna get in corners, I know we have a couple people that are like that. Some of the staff will get up and space out. And what we wanna do is a chance for an altar call. I hate that term, but I don't know what else to call it because we don't have an altar. I wanna give you a chance that Jesus is at your shore right now. If you just wanna be alone, there's space right here. There's space on the floor in front of you. There's space all around. There's lobbies, there's bathroom. Go wherever you have to go. I don't care. But if you want to talk with someone about this, if you want to deal with this, if you want a physical hug to represent Jesus, go to these people. Anybody that's standing up right now. Here's the best part, and I want to end with this. When Peter jumped out of the boat and recognized that it was Jesus, it was not pretty. It was actually really messy. Now in movies, I've never done this before, but in movies, when there's a scene where you got to jump in water, what happens? Take your shirt off, there's a 6-pack, and it's just all beautiful, right? You jump in the water, right? A perfect dive, like a 10 for 10, right? This is not what happens. Peter puts on his outer cloak, because he was in work clothes. He puts on his outer cloak, and then it says he falls in the water. Like he's trying to get out of the boat, he's like, Jesus! And then just gets in the water. It is the messiest thing ever, right? It's ugly, it's not pleasant to look at. They would never make a movie out of it. But here's something really important from it. You can be messy too. Like you don't have to come in your suit and tie before you come before the stage and just pray. You don't have to get everything fixed before you come. You can just come ugly, the mess that you are, whatever it has to be, you can come forward. And so the band's gonna sing this song that I think just fits so well with it. Actually, all the songs fit so stinking well with today. But I want you to take this time. You can sit down, you can stand up, you can do whatever you want. I want you to take this time to just really remove the baggage, remove the distractions, and just communicate with Jesus. Have a conversation with Jesus. So we'll give you some time to do that now.
No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light stand and just worship in this moment, just take this time to just have an intimate moment with your Father right now. Oh, no. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Yeah, yeah. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Yeah. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Just sing it till you believe it. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves a 99, and I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
God, for those that are in here this morning doubting that your opinion of them is low, that your opinion of them is a lost cause. God, for every heart in here that's yearning to know what you think of them, I pray that you will just bring peace and boldness and confidence in the fact that no matter how far we run away, no matter how far we take our boat out, you are still on the shore calling out for us, offering us relationship with you. God, for anybody that's in here right now that feels so lost and so removed from your grace, shut their heart up right now and give them the confidence to know that you love them. God, let that be our cry. Let us feel not shame, but feel gratitude in the fact that you are always there calling out to us. In your name I pray. Amen. Y'all can take a seat really quick. We're gonna close out. We stopped doing the announcement videos. It seems like the last 3 we did, y'all just talked. So we're like, let's get rid of those. I want to tell you guys real quick a couple things. We're back to passing the bucket. So if you're sitting on the outside, if you'll just pick up that metal bucket, pass it in. Even if you're sitting there and you don't have anything to put in it, could you just pass it in, because we've got a few people in the rows, and keep it going. I want to tell you about one thing really quick that's coming up, and it's we've only got, I think, 2 more weeks, maybe 1 more. Scott's been doing a summer sprint. And a summer sprint is like Connection Group, but it's on a shorter term, shorter run, I think 6 weeks. And he'll be finishing out, his summer sprint has been so good. It's been about, how do you read the Bible like a professional? Right, like a lot of us feel like we're reading our Bible and we're just not getting anything out of it. I feel like I'm doing something wrong. Scott's been walking through, and the testimony stories you've been hearing from it have been awesome, that people are learning how to read their Bible. It's not too late. We still have either 1 or 2 more weeks. I'm not totally sure with that. And then the last thing is we have Out of the Garden. I think they talked about it at the beginning, June 30th. The sign up is on the hub if you want to visit that. But that's all we've got for you guys. I hope you have a great day, a great week. And I'm going to the beach right now with my wife. So I will see you guys later. Y'all have a great week.